Vincent Cain Vaughan Taylor was born in 1817. He is Jane and Cain Vaughan Taylor's only child. He was a very calm and quiet baby. His mother was very protective over him. That didn't change as he grew. However, with his father it was different. They had an extremely difficult relationship. Vincent was always trying to get a rise out of him. Sometimes Bartholomew reacted too far. Vincent would then tell his mother what he did to him. Then Jane would argue with Bartholomew. Even when he tried to explain himself, she didn't want to hear it. Jane always chose Vincent's side over his. He could do no wrong in his mother's eyes, and he took advantage of that. In 1831, Jane had become bedridden by an illness. She spent days motionless in bed. Vincent hated the sight of his mother in such state. He was with her when she took her last breath. She passed away in 1833. Her death further estranged Vincent and Bartholomew's relationship. They always argued. The only thing that kept them from killing each other was distance. Bartholomew started to drink to cope with Jane's death. A few years passed. In 1840, Bartholomew was remarried. The young woman's name was Amelia. Around this time, Vincent spent most of his time drinking and hooking up. He was with a different girl every night. One night at a ball, Vincent and Amelia shared a dance. Bartholomew kept a close eye on them. When he lost track of them, he knew something was up. He had caught them together doing what he feared. He confronted Amelia, who belittled the situation. Infuriated, he fought Vincent. Bartholomew went through so much stress that he had a heart attack. Amelia found him and was able to get him help. While he was on bed rest, she continued to fool around with Vincent. But that didn't last when Vincent met someone else. Her name was Penelope, and she wanted nothing to do with him. No matter how much Vincent would pry, she wouldn't give him a chance. They would argue a lot because of it. Eventually, Penelope started to fall for him. They were married in 1845. During that time, Amelia left and was remarried to someone else. Bartholomew remained alone in his room, only receiving visits from his doctor. Vincent went ahead to forge a will so that he gets everything. When Bartholomew dies, he and his wife spent the next few years partying and being in love. In 1850, they were expecting. They had twins, Harold and Bernard. The twins were mostly raised by the nanny and butler, while Penelope and Vincent enjoyed each other. Every now and then they would check in on them. In 1855, Bartholomew passed of a heart condition. He was buried beside Jane like he wanted. And in his will, he left everything to Vincent, just like he planned. Harold von Taylor was born in 1850. He is Penelope and Vincent Cain von Taylor's first child. At a young age, Harold and his brother Bernard were left in the care of the nanny and butler. Their parents were mostly out partying, so they rarely saw them. Most of their early years were spent in the nursery. That's where they were schooled, and where they became best friends. As they grew older, they became more rebellious. Harold had become a mastermind at scheming and experimenting. He would propose his plans to Bernard, who was always willing to do whatever Harold asked of him. He loved chaos. They would do anything and everything to get their parents' attention, and nothing worked. They drove their nanny insane and harassed the maids. Since their parents wouldn't bat an eye, they would start trouble just for fun. When they turned 18, their father sat them down to tell them he was ill, and that he was only going to leave everything in his will to one of them. The boys were devastated to hear that, because they both wanted everything to themselves. But there was no negotiation. Vincent made it clear that was the way it would be, which meant the boys had to decide who was going to have it all and who wasn't. Vincent knew what he was setting his sons up for and couldn't wait to watch it unfold. They had 3 years to decide, or it wouldn't go to either of them. Penelope didn't necessarily agree to it, but she didn't have much say. Harold already knew that he would get the inheritance, and he kept that to himself. He remained close with Bernard. He knew his father was trying to tear them apart. So instead, he focused on other things. He and the maid were having an affair. Her name was Edith. She was his first everything. Harold would buy her the most expensive jewelry for her acquired taste. He was madly in love with her. They were married in 1869. Edith made herself a home in her new wealthy life. She wasn't going to let anything take it away from her. Within a year of marriage, she was pregnant. She gave birth to a boy named Edison. Now that Harold was a husband and father, he was sure that the inheritance would go to him. When he talked to his father about it, Vincent told him he and his brother had to agree to that. So Harold told Bernard the inheritance should be his to support his family. Bernard didn't agree to that and expressed that he would fight over the inheritance if he had to. Harold didn't want to take it that far, and he would spend the next 6 years trying to compromise. But Bernard would always pick a fight, and that only drifted them further apart. On top of that, his marriage was in shambles. Edith threatened to leave him if he didn't inherit his family's wealth. She married him for the money and refused to stay without it. Harold had no choice but to fight for it. Vincent only allowed for the conflict to go on so long because it was entertaining. In late 1879, shortly after their mother died, Harold sat down with his brother and father to challenge Bernard to a duel. When the day came, Harold had many regrets. But Bernard was ready to get the inheritance, all while Vincent sat back and enjoyed the show. Bernard von Taylor was born in 1850. He is Penelope and Vincent Kane von Taylor's second child. Growing up, Bernard was a risk-taker. While his twin brother Harold was the brains, Bernard was more brawns. He wasn't afraid of pain or consequences. He didn't mind getting his hands dirty. When his father broke the news about the inheritance, Bernard was upset. He didn't want to fight his brother, but he would do anything to get the inheritance. He started working out to prepare for what was coming. Harold would later try to convince him to let him have the inheritance, but Bernard wouldn't let that happen without a fight. After that, whenever they crossed paths, they would fight each other. Bernard would always win. His father was impressed with his dedication. They talked to each other a lot and became close over the years. Vincent saw himself in him. That only made Bernard more devoted to win the inheritance. But he was confident that there was no chance he'd lose. While Harold was struggling with his marriage and stressing about the inheritance, Bernard was working out and messing with his wife. But she wasn't the only woman he was seeing. There was a woman named Athena that he was in an ongoing relationship with. Bernard didn't treat her well. No matter how much he hurt her, she didn't love him any less. In 1877, Athena had given birth to a girl named Louisa. Although Athena and Bernard weren't married, Athena wanted her to have her father's last name. Bernard wasn't satisfied with his child being a girl, so he refused to claim her. But he would still hook up with Athena every now and then. When his brother finally agreed to a duel, Bernard was ready for it. The following week they met up at dawn. Their entire family was there. The pressure was on. Only one of them would win. They took their steps, counted, then turned. They had both shot each other. Vincent was shocked. Harold and Bernard von Taylor passed away in 1879. The family was devastated. Vincent was disappointed that things ended the way they did. Since Harold had a son, Vincent passed down the inheritance to Edison and his mother. However, Athena and her daughter were left with nothing. Vincent gave her money and told her to change the baby's last name since she never married Bernard. Athena wasn't happy about it but agreed to do so. She then returned to her home country and never looked back. She later discovered she was expecting. In 1880 she had a boy, like Bernard always wanted. She named him Andreas.